Hello everyone and welcome back. Today we are diving into one of the most fascinating and mysterious poem of the Romantic period. That is Kubla Khan by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Now this is not just a poem, it is an experience. It is a vision, a dream and a reflection on how the imagination works. So in the next few minutes we will look into its context, structure, and most importantly, the ideas behind those vivid images. So you can understand what Coleridge is really saying here academically, but in a way that makes sense. Context. Where does the poem come from? Samuel Taylor Coleridge, one of the major English romantic poets, wrote Kubla Khan around 1797, but it was published much later in 1816. He said quite famously that he had dreamt the poem after reading about the Mongol Emperor Kubla Khan's palace at Jandu, and while under the influence of Afim, he woke up and began writing, but was interrupted by a person from Pollock, and the rest of the dream was lost. That story became part of the poem's legend. Whether it is true or not, it gives us a great lens to read Kubla Khan as a fragment of imagination, a glimpse into the creative mind at work. Academically, this makes the poem important because it's not just describing a place, it is showing the process of poetic creation itself. It is about how imagination can create a world so vivid it feels almost divine. Structure. The poem naturally falls into two movements. The first describes the magnificent setting, the pleasure dome of Kubla Khan Jandu. The second turns inward. It becomes about the poet's own imagination and his longing to recreate that vision. So, the poem begins in a majestic descriptive tone and ends in something deeply personal and mystical. The vision of Jandu, man and nature. It opens with in Jandu did Kubla Khan a stately pleasure dome decree. Kubla Khan commands a grand palace to be built, a human act of creation. But Coleridge immediately brings in nature, where Alf, the sacred river, ran through caravans measureless to man, down to sunless sea. This gives us two layers, the human and the natural side by side. The sacred river is life giving, yet it flows into a sunless sea, suggesting mystery and danger beneath their beauty. So, already we see how the poem's central contrasts creation and destruction, light and dark, the known and the unknowable. Then the description expands. Gardens bright with sinuous rills, forest ancient as the hills. There is order, fertility, even fragrance, incense bearing trees. Coleridge builds a paradise, but not a peaceful one, because then comes sudden shift, the chasm and the fountain, the wild power of imagination. But oh, the deep romantic chasm which slanted. This is where calm beauty breaks into wild energy. The chasm is described as savage, holy, and enchanted. The tension, savage and holy, shows us how romantic poets viewed nature. Not just a pretty scenery, but as something sublime, mysterious, and powerful. Then a fountain burst into the earth, as if this earth in fast, thick pants were breathing. The earth itself is alive, breathing, even laboring, a symbol of creative energy. From this chaos, the sacred river rises again. So, nature's wild, uncountable power becomes the source of creation. Just as the poet's imagination springs from the chaos and emotion, the prophecy and the shadow, beauty with a warning. The river flows on, widening through woods until it sinks in tumblet of a lifeless ocean. And in that turmoil, Kubla hears ancestral voice prophesying war. That line changes everything. It is a reminder that human creation, no matter how beautiful, carries within it the seeds of conflict and decay. Even paradise can be shadowed by destruction. Then Coleridge gives us his haunting image, a sunny pleasure dome with caves of ice. It is an impossible structure, warmth and cold together. Academically, this symbolizes duality. Imagination unites opposites, joy and terror, life and death, sun and ice. That is what makes Coleridge's imagination a miracle of rare device. The damsel with the dulcimer, the poet's vision. Now comes the shift, the second part of the poem. A damsel with a dulcimer in a vision once I saw. This part is about inspiration. The Abyssinian maid represent pure artistic imagination. Her music is so divine that the poet longs to recreate it. He says, could I revive within me her symphony and song, I would build that dome in air. Is Coleridge's metaphor for poetry itself. Through music or through words, the artist can rebuild paradise not physically but imaginatively. In academic terms, this is the poetic ideal of romanticism, that the imagination has creative power, almost divine, to make visions real, even if only for a moment. The ending, the sacred power of the poet. The poem closes with an image of the poet as a figure both admired and feared. His flashing eyes, his floating hair, for he on honeydew hath fed and drunk the milk of paradise. It sounds mystical, but the message is clear. The true poet has tasted something otherworldly. He has touched the divine through imagination, and that makes him different from ordinary people. Others look on with awe, even with fear, because the creative power he holds is beyond normal human experience. So the poem ends where it began, with creation. But this time, not the emperor's physical dome, but the poet's mental dome. The vision he rebuilds in air. What to remember? Let's summarize the academic points. Theme. The poem is about the power and limitation of the imagination, how it can create worlds but cannot always hold on to them. Structure. Two movements. First, the description of creation, Kubla's dome. Then, the reflection on artist creation, the poet's vision. Tone shifts from the majestic and descriptive to visionary and ecstatic. Symbols, the river, flow of imagination, the chasm and fountain, the wild unconsciousness, source of creativity. The dome, artistic perfection and harmony of opposites. The Abyssinian maid represents inspiration and the muse. Romantic ideas, nature as sublime, imagination as divine, art as bridge between the human and the eternal. So, Kubla Khan is not just a dream poem, it is a meditation on how imagination works. It shows that true art comes from deep, uncontrollable force, the same kind that shapes nature itself. Coleridge gives us a glimpse of that power and then leaves us suspended mid vision, as if reminding us that inspiration can never be fully contained. And that is exactly what makes Kubla Khan such an enduring romantic masterpiece. If you found this helpful, stay tuned. Next time we will look into how Coleridge's ideas of imagination connects to Wordsworth's Tintin Abbey and how both poets approach the sublime in completely different ways. Thanks for watching, and remember, literature is not about memorizing lines, it is about learning to see the imagination behind them. I'll see you in the next one.